Hello and welcome to another episode of the Record Ceremony. This is Miles Bonney. You might notice that in this episode we're going to be a lot more focused, concise, and organized. I think I've said that probably in every single episode on this series so far. I've even thought about trashing this whole thing starting over, but I've done that too many times with podcasts. This is at least my third podcast since 1999, and we're going to keep it moving. And I'm really happy today to have a good friend and a wonderful person I'm excited for some of you all to meet for the first time today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sam. Some people know me as the Trance Conductor. My pen name is Neurosynapses. And I've been knowing Miles Bonney. How long has it been now, Miles?
I want to say 8 years.
8 years, yeah. We're neighbors and friends and collaborate on all kinds of artistic ventures. So it's been cool to see this record ceremony develop over the years.
That's right. I forgot this series is called Record Ceremony, but it does make sense because this is about recording and recordings, and we have actually done probably the whole run of Record Ceremony as a radio show when it existed on KNC here in Taos 93.5 FM. So it does make total sense to be on this one. Starting off with that, before we get into what we're going to speak about with you, the last part is that some of those recordings are still in existence on Mixcloud. So for those of you listening who have used it before or not, go to mixcloud.com. There's also an app. And if you search Record Ceremony there, you'll get some of those radio episodes that I uploaded on occasion. But today on the podcast, we're mainly focusing just on the conversation piece. So let's jump into that. We've done a lot of things together. There's a lot we could talk about. But starting off now, in the little time we have, you started a nonprofit recently.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I went on a medical mission on the summer of 2019, and it just made such an impact on me to see the level of difficulty that people are facing in sub-Saharan Africa. And so I started to work on it in my mind, think about what I could do to make a difference, aside from just like a short medical trip or it's a drop in the bucket for what's really needed. So I made contacts with some wrestlers over there, traditional wrestlers, and I was looking for things that unite us, because often we come from different cultures, speak different languages, have different religions. So I'm looking for the things that unite us. And wrestling and sports and arts and culture kept popping up as something that bridges those barriers, whether they be linguistic or cultural barriers. And so I put a team together, and we were able to incorporate in the spring of last year, and we're 501c3 called Unity Through Arts and Culture, and we've been active around the world, locally, also Africa, South America, Central Asia. And our mission is basically to use everyone's shared love for art and culture to raise funds to then address social or environmental needs. So that includes food security, water purity, public health, public safety, all these things. So we've been active in the last year. We've really been getting after it.
Yeah, it's great, man. And I think the website's nearly complete, so people, if they want afterwards, can donate whatever they can or just learn more. And currently, I've seen quite a few bits of documentation, just so people can get a sense for the culture of what it is you're working on and where you're starting out. And a big part of that you've been posting on Facebook on your page, personal profile, it's a long story, but is this whole thing about gathering instruments, use instruments that are in good condition and sharing them with others. I mean, is there a focus on youth with these instruments, or where are they going?
We're trying to get them into the hands of the youth. So this was something that we thought we'd just do for Christmas, and we had such a great turnout that we decided this is going to be something that we do year round, and something that hopefully we get known for. So I just happen to know that without any money changing hands, a lot of people have an old accordion, their grandma's old accordion, or some old instrument that's just collecting dust in the closet. So I asked people to donate that, and then we redistribute them to kids in the community. And we've put dozens and dozens of instruments in the hands of kids this past season. And I think it's great because even with the lockdown and what have you, really that's the perfect time to learn a new axe, and to woodshed on something. if you're stuck at home anyway, might as well build your skills. And music is something you can enjoy by yourself or in a group. It's something that has, I mean, music has been a lifelong love affair for me, and I can't say, I couldn't even begin to describe the gifts that music has given to me in terms of friendships and loves and connections that I have around the world. So if I'm able to pass that on to the next generation, we need those guys, you know, and those are going to be the musicians that we call upon, you know, that keep it happening. And all they need is the tools and a little bit of guidance. And kids are smart, man. They figure those instruments out fast. They'll be making beautiful music in no time.
That's awesome. In connecting the dots, again, there's so much we could talk about. I'm trying to stay focused on it. We talked about music as an element of what you're working on. There's other areas that you have also made steps in. Things that come to mind are I don't know if you'd call it wrestling relationship that you can get into maybe. Can you talk about some of those other elements of the culture of the nonprofit and
Sure.
Because this builds upon who you are.
Sure.
The nonprofit is not just starting from the very beginning.
Yeah. Well, one thing we just accomplished, which I'm real proud of, one of my neighbors and friends, David Prentice, is a world-class paraglider, and he was flying in Colombia this past season. He goes every winter to fly in Colombia. And so this year I asked him, hey, while you're there, can we do some outreach for the poor folks there? And there's a lot of Venezuelan refugees in Colombia these days.
Yeah.
And so his paragliding community came together, and they put up more than $3,000. And so we were able to wire that money to David. And while he's down there teaching paragliding, in the evenings he's also going out, helping widows, helping orphans, helping old people. People sleeping on cardboard. He was able to buy them mattresses. We bought a laptop for some students at a school there. So that's one example of how far-reaching it can be. So that's taking the love of flying, paragliding, and then rallying that community to then invest in those places where they like to go fly. And so that not only does it build up that community, but it also, he was able to teach two young men to fly there. So
Wow.
Those kids are going to have a craft, basically. They're going to have a trade, something that's valuable where they can, they have a unique skill because of that, you know. And so that's kind of what we're looking toward. Other projects that we've been doing, a lot of healthcare, burn victims, quadriplegics.
And how are you hearing about, for instance, those people who went through that?
So the connections that I made when I was traveling as a young man, I traveled a lot, and before I had all these kids that you can hear, and those friendships that I made during my travels, we built the trust. We know each other. There's that familiarity. So when my good friend Farhat from Kyrgyzstan calls and says, "Hey, this man was just badly injured and paralyzed," so then I know I can, with full confidence, send him the funds.
Because you know what's going to happen once it gets in his hands.
Yes, and same thing with Africa. My friends there, they'll say, "Hey, there's this boy in our neighborhood. He's got this horrible skin infection." They reach out, And then when people reach out, then I try to come up with something. I'll just beg, too. Sometimes I'll just beg. But preferably, I like to set up something fun, an event where people can participate and have fun and enjoy. We're working on raising money to drill a well in northern Senegal, and we're going to do some Valentine's Day concerts to
just
fund
to
that.
clarify, because people have heard of the idea of well drilling and as a donation and an initiative. It's not something people go down the street to the local store and pay for.
Right.
So just to create some clarity, since so much of what you're sharing sounds to be based upon the fact that you have these relationships and you trust people, you know things firsthand. It's not going through a million people to get to the well.
So I'll tell you how the well developed in northern Senegal, right on the border of Mauritania. It's super dry, sub-Saharan. And I've seen kids that were so dehydrated they were digging through trash piles to find, at the bottom of a plastic cup, there'll be a few drops that stick to the bottom of the cup. they'll be going through trash to just get those last drops of water out of rubbish piles. So that's how dry and thirsty it is there. I went to see a medicine man while I was there, Dr. Suleiman, and he treats people. He's an herbalist. He also uses a variety of old methods, bleeding and stuff. People come to him because they know that he'll take care of them, whether they can pay for it or not. So he acquired a piece of land, and he's hoping to drill a well. And he told me if we're able to get the well, then he'll open it up to the neighborhood, to the community, where people can come fill their containers. And so it's just, it's hard to imagine if you haven't seen it yourself, but these are places where people go long distances to have small amount of water that's not necessarily that good quality, you know.
Is it difficult for you as someone who has traveled so much and traveled in a way that's been very embedded with the people that live there to, I mean, you're a good communicator, but is it hard to communicate those experiences, the reality of them, how easy it can be to make an impact to people here who may not have been to those places or ever experienced and have any sort of connection like you do to really people on the ground across the world?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
You want to say something, man?
That's my baby Leon. Yeah, you know, it's hard to, you can't even imagine it unless you see it. And when I was a young man, I went to the favelas in Brazil, and I saw desperate poverty. But since I became a father, and I've had other people's lives in my hands, that I've been responsible for the upbringing of these children, then that carries over, I think, when I see other children. Like, imagine what it would feel like to be so destitute that your 3-year-old son would have to go beg on the streets because you don't have food to feed them. I don't know if most people can even begin to imagine that.
It's a lot of layers.
It feels bad enough when you can't buy your kids Christmas presents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you were so destitute that you'd have to send your own children, sometimes not even out to the streets, sometimes just, sorry, kid. You know, these people, there's hordes of little kids, tens of thousands of little boys that are begging on the streets in Dakar and in these cities of Senegal. So as a father, I think I have a lot more motivation to try to address it, even if, I mean, I could live a million lifetimes and never repair the damage that was done to Africa and her children. But it feels better to do something than to sit on your hands and say no.
Yes,
You
man.
know.
Jeez, that is real. All right, in this new concise nature, we have about 2 more minutes, man.
All right.
So much to share. What is the website, and any way that people can go on the internet or their phone and learn more about what you're doing and or the nonprofit?
Yeah, you can check us out at Unity through artsandculture.org. And there's also a way to contact us there. And my name is Samuel Burke Favreau. You could contact me directly if you have something in mind even. And I like to tell people, like, don't hesitate to come to us, because even if it's some old lady that you know that needs firewood, we'll address that, you know. It could be anything. It could be any need that arises. It could be a river cleanup. I went by the Chama River. It was a mess, you know, people throwing trash by the river. Let's go clean up the river and let's make a block party out of it, you know. It's not about denying ourselves joy. It's about using what we love, what we're passionate about, to address the many needs and difficulties that humans find themselves in this day and age. And I feel like that's the way to go. How much time do we have?
I mean, roughly a minute, man, but I'm just thinking there's so much we didn't talk about. And also, you know, I have fear within me as I hear you speak about what happens when you have more calls for action than you can work on. But the fear shouldn't come from the need being expressed.
Right.
That should simply just transition into a new system of how to address it. Because it is even at that first initial basic fear moment for any of us, the doubt of, well, I can't try this because
Right.
that's where we start a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But you're encouraging people to not do that, including even reaching out to you.
Yeah, I wanted to mention one thing. I heard Eve Ensler, the founder of the Vagina Monologues, talking on the radio. She said, if men cared as much about women and children as they do about football, the world would be a better place. And that struck a nerve with me because I don't quite think it's true. I think there's a lot of men that wish that we could do something to make things better for our children, wish that we're living in a world that was better for our women. It's not necessarily all in our hands, but the whole football thing, instead of trying to convince men to not like football and to spend their time otherwise, let's have a benefit football game.
Right.
Instead of going against nature, okay, people like the fights. Okay, let's get these boxers, let's get these wrestlers
Fight for nature.
Yeah, fight for what needs to be the beautiful and sacred things that are worth fighting for. And so it's not, like I say, it's not about not having fun and sacrificing, and instead of having a good time, you're going to give your money to charity. No, let's get together, let's have a good time, let's do what we love, and let's put that abundance toward the people who are suffering the hardest,
Thank you so much, man. I'm really excited to, well, thanks first for sharing all that and sharing all those beautiful words. And thanks for everything you've done, everything you're doing, the nonprofit. There aren't a whole lot of social media accounts for the nonprofit yet, but there's a website address. What is it, that again?
unitythrough-arts-and-culture.org.
Okay.
And thank you so much for your time, Miles. You're a workhorse, man. I see you working too. You're doing great things, man.
Trying to get the grease on the gears.
Yes.
All right, love you, man. Thanks,
Love
and
you
we'll
too.
talk again soon. Stay in touch with him, everybody. They have dope shirts, and they have a brand new patch that I have a handful of. Check them out and support however you can, and do your part in the world. Peace.
Peace.